protect, and keep you refreshed every day. I still can't believe how quickly you've grown. Dettol, tested effective against COVID-19.
From far with you. I even gifted you a magnificent house. Rosa, it's the thought that counts. Please help me.
When it comes to fever, you need to be both. Panadol Baby and Infant starts to work on fever in 15 minutes and is gentle on the tummy. Panadol Baby and Infant, tough on fever, gentle on your child.
All the days and the nights, reading for them and to them. You don't stop, and neither do we. Help build a strong foundation for your growing child with Nestle Nunkid. Nestle Nunkid 4. Our best for you.
Subira by Ibra featuring Skill Bill. Dial star 812 star 799 hash. Skiza, Na Nation.
This is NTV.
Greetings, East Africa. You are just in time for Your World, an opportunity to interrogate pertinent issues that affect your day today. Now, speaking of which, they have said over and over again that the role of a parent in the upbringing of a child is paramount. Now, this morning, we focus on the role of a father. Do we still have fathers who are actively involved with their children? Did we ever have that established in the first place? If not, what is the impact of a present or absent father on a child's life? We answer these and other questions in a moment. My name is Gladys Gachanja, and this is Your World. As I mentioned, we talk about fatherhood. What is the role of a father in a child's life?
Scary.
Leads to such extremes, a child turning on their own father. Sudan tells Ethiopia it will take action if it continues to fill the Nile Dam. Earth movers in India are rescuing those trapped inside after floods hit northern India. Thank you for joining us on this broadcast. As I mentioned today, we're talking about fatherhood, to be precise, present fatherhood. So on that note, your question of the day this morning is, do you or did you have a close relationship with your father growing up? If not, tell us why. That hashtag is new normal. And of course, if you had an excellent relationship with your father, also tell us what kind of relationship it was and the impact it has had on your life. Remember, that hashtag is new normal, and you can also call in using those numbers at the bottom of your screen. Now, before we get to that conversation, let's take a look at the numbers in as far as COVID-19 is concerned. Now, globally, this morning, that number stands at 107,006,667 confirmed cases of COVID-19 around the world. Out of that number, 78,997,507 have totally recovered from the same. And out of that number, unfortunately, out of a bigger number, we have lost 2,336,303 people to COVID-19 globally. So how does it look like in Kenya? Well, according to yesterday's briefing, 101,944 confirmed cases in this country, 84,473 recovered cases, and unfortunately we have lost 1,786 Kenyans to COVID-19. Again, as I keep saying, wear your mask, social distance, wash your hands with soap and water, and if you can't get to the soap and water on a regular, use your hand-based sanitizer that needs to be alcohol-based. A look at some of the stories making headlines this Tuesday morning. Now, a South African organization hosts a firearms training day aimed at helping black women protect themselves in a country where a woman is murdered every 3 hours. Gun Owners of South Africa's GOSA, Girls on Fire campaign, was created in 2015 to coincide with the UN 16 Days of Activism.
I've held one before.
You get that thing that I can do it, I can do it, I can do it, you know?
We're just used to men handling guns, and women, it's just a taboo for women to own guns, or let alone even handling a gun. So it's about time that changed, since we faced with so much crime in our country. So we need to learn to defend ourselves.
With me, I was prohibited because of being a girl. But surprisingly enough, he left the gun for me. So it's quite ironic that I believe it's cultural, but we're living in the 21st century. Every girl should equip themselves with the usage of a gun.
If you look at our country, statistically, the young black female is the most impacted by crime. We all are, I mean, all races and genders, but statistically, I just figured, you know, young black women need to also know how to be their own first responders.
We've got Jocelyn and we've got Laura.
It's so important to empower women to look after themselves. We're not just, we don't have to sit in the corner and be victims.
Elsewhere, hundreds of refugees have trickled back to their remote villages in South Darfur nearly a decade after fleeing war there. Now they think they rushed the decision following attacks by local nomads. Abdullah Mohammed Mustafa, the village sheikh, says first, displaced people do not come back here to Hamada village because they fear the militia, and bandits beat people. Secondly, they are afraid in the village because there is very little police and they do not have cars, and there is also little army presence. Mohammed Adam, a resident of the village, also adds these people raided the village in the fall, and they were armed men who rode in on camels onto the agricultural land until it was destroyed and there was no one to stop them. If the owner of the farm objected, they assaulted them by beating or flogging with a whip or with a weapon. Still in the continent, Sudan warned Ethiopia Saturday against going ahead with the second phase of filling its mega dam on the Blue Nile, saying it would pose a direct threat to Sudanese national security. In an interview in the capital Khartoum, Sudan's water minister Yasser said it will also threaten the lives of half the population in central Sudan, as well as irrigation, water for agricultural projects and power generation. Sudan, Egypt and Ethiopia have been locked in inconclusive talks for nearly a decade over the filling and operation of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam after Addis Ababa broke ground on the project in 2011. Ethiopia, which says it has already reached its first-year target for filling the dam's reservoir, has recently signaled it would proceed with the filling regardless of whether a deal was struck. In South Africa, the South African Minister of Health, Zweli Mkhize, says that more studies needed regarding the efficacy of the AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine ahead of national rollout, as more cases of a new virus strain spread in the country. Recent research revealed that the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine fails to prevent mild and moderate cases of the South African coronavirus strain.
From Professor Shabir Mahdi is that some more work needs to be done on this issue, because the results from other countries have been quite satisfactory, but there are issues in South Africa that we need to study a bit more. There are discussions going on Sputnik V. There are discussions going on the Sinopharm. The department and the Ministerial Advisory Committee are dealing with that. There are discussions that are going on with Moderna, and we will also need to explore on Novavax, because that one had not been much of discussion. So the discussion on all of them remains open.
Now, in the latest episode of What's Happening with Our Children, and perhaps something that gives us focus to our conversation of the day, a man who accidentally walked in on his high school son reportedly engaging in sexual acts with a lady last week paid with his life thanks to a brawl that manifested thereafter. Police have since arrested the Form 4 student who stands accused of killing his father with a machete. Is it time to talk about our approach to parenting? Take a look.
Sasa sisi tuko na huzuni na tunaomba serikali. Huyu kijana anafikiri ati ametoroka, lakini ni uongo. Utapatikana tu. Uwezi hata mwezi moja.
Ameishi kutusumbua. Tumeenda hata kwa askari. Hakuna usaidizi tumeona. Ndio hata huyo askari tulimpigia vile alituambia akikuja tumuite. Aliniambia, alisema ako Meru. Na ajui ni nani ako kwa ofisi.
Sad indeed, and we will talk about that more this morning. And still in line with our conversation this morning, Brian Mushiri caught up with renowned actor Ian Bogwa, who is a champion for present fatherhood. Here is today's episode of Your Voice.
This morning on Your Voice and on your world at large, it's all about present fatherhood. Ian Bogwa, good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning, good morning, good morning.
And we'll jump straight into the conversation. It's all about present fatherhood, and you are very intentional about being present in your children's lives. Why?
It is fathers' duty to be present when their children are growing up. Every milestone that a child has, the father should be there to experience. It is the father to teach the child all those things. Asiyefunzwa na babaye, funzwa na dunia. I believe that parenting is very, very important.
So how do you figure out the difference between Ian Mbugua, the man that we know out here in the streets, and Ian Mbugua, dad at home? How do you create the difference?
There really isn't much of a difference. It's just that I know when to dedicate my time to my family and when to dedicate time to the outside world. But for me, family always comes first.
When young men, perhaps say in particular tribes, when they undergo the rite of passage, young men are told, hey, mwanaume haonekanangi kitchen, mwanaume atembeangi na wamama, mwanaume haliangi. What do you make of this as Ian Mbugua and as a parent who has a son?
That is wrong. To tell a man, a boy, that you're not supposed to cry, you're not supposed to be seen in the kitchen, you're not supposed to do all these things, that is wrong. Roles have changed. There's nothing like the role of a man and a role of a woman in anywhere in the world now. Men are doing jobs that women did before, and women are doing jobs that men do. Men have feelings, boys have feelings. And if you start telling them that you're not supposed to be seen to cry, you're not supposed to be a sissy, that's why we end up having so many boys, young men who are absolutely clueless. And the rate of suicide and depression is more among young men than it is women.
I grew up as Brian Mushiri. I have grown up watching Ian Mbugua, and you come from perhaps quote unquote a generation of fathers that imagine that maybe once I've paid the school fees and once I've catered for my family's needs, I am done. I'm father 101, I'm daddy on gear 5. What has made you stand out of this? Because I know you have probably stand up and out of all your peers, perhaps, if I may say.
I have seen very many young men, yes, and I'm talking mainly about young men and boys, who are indisciplined because of a lack of a proper foundation. They had no father figure. I'm not saying that single moms have done a bad job. No, single moms have done absolutely everything they can to bring up their children. But there comes a time when a boy needs a father figure.
I'm not married, I don't have a child yet, but I intend to get myself into that position in the next couple of years, perhaps in the future. Any word for me, and also as you close this discussion?
If you're planning to have children, make sure that you put them as your first priority. You must be there. You must be there when they're born. You must be the one to teach them, to help, to watch them take their first steps, to hear them speaking their first words, teach them to ride their bicycle, and just be there in the formative years. If you're not ready to be there in the formative years, then I think you'd better not have children.
As Ian Mbugua has told us, if you're not ready to have children, or rather, if you're not ready to take up the mantle of being a parent, then do not have children. And being a parent, or rather being a father and a father figure, is all on you. Good morning. I'm Brian Mushiri.
A voice there by Brian Mushiri, and definitely amazing insights there coming from Ian Mbugua, who is a father and is very passionate about being a present father. Now, a lot of pointers coming out of that conversation, and we'll touch on them as we go along with this conversation. Now, we are still expecting in studio Pastor Simon Bevy, who is the founder and director at Transform Nations, to help us walk this. Of course, most of you know as a guy behind Money Enough, but to help us also understand this conversation better from a lived experience, we have a couple of people in studio with me. Rispa Wanjiro is joining us, Teresa Alando is joining us virtually, and Jeff Dindi, who is a blogger and founder of Present Fatherhood, is also with us, and also Steve Aomo is joining us on this conversation. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining me this morning. And let's first understand your experiences with your fathers. I'll start off with you, Jeff. What was your experience like like with your father, if at all?
Thank you very much, Gladys. My experience with my father was rather a short-lived one because he passed on when I was around 12 years of age, and I really didn't get much time with him because he was a pastor and he constantly traveled a lot. That's why men of God are normally told to their first ministries in their homes. But my dad was constantly out there, and therefore most of the times I was at home alone, and thus I didn't get to spend much time with him. And when he passed on, I was taken in by an aunt, and there my fatherhood journey just ended there.
Okay, so that was a pretty young age. So are you saying now that you did not have a father figure that it had an impact on who you are today?
Definitely, yes, it had an impact because there are things, fatherhood is something that unfortunately you learn through experience. You learn through watching somebody who is a father. That's why if you have a bad father, most likely you're going to be bad also. And thus, I had to be intentional on learning how to be a father. Yeah.
All right. Now, just to take you back on the father figure, did any of your uncles, relatives, perhaps, take up that mantle?
Unfortunately, no. None of them did.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Now, let's hear from a lady. Rispa, what is your experience with your father, if at all?
I've been raised by a single mom. I never met my father up to last year in July 2020 when I was 29 years old. Basically, I knew my mom as the father and the mother to me, no father figure other than my uncles, but they were not present in terms of giving me what it entails to experience fatherhood. And therefore, when I met my dad last year in July, it was the best experience in my life because I always thought he was dead because my mother put that impression that he's not existent. So now it's a work in progress, getting to know my dad and actually realizing that I have stepsisters. I was the only child, and the 8 years after my mom died, it was more of, I knew myself as an orphan, yeah.
Okay, now you say that your uncles did not live up to the expectations you had of a father. Exactly what did you expect to have from your uncles?
I would say that affirmation is what I lacked, sense of identity, basically the protection and being secure that, you know, you have a man in your life who you can look up to. It was more of, you go to up country, that's when you meet your uncles, but all throughout, it was just me and my mother.
Okay, and when you think about the impact that had, you said you lacked affirmation. So what is the direct impact that you can put to this?
I would say in terms of affirmation and acceptance, I really struggled with rejection, even as I grew up in terms of people that I engage with, the relationships that I get into. It really affected me as I grew up, but when I realized that I really had a lot inside me that I had to deal with, which was father wounds, I had to take that step to face them. And yeah, I indulged myself into programs that could at least help me get out of what I was going through. And I believe that, yeah, I've become a better person as time went by.
Okay, you mentioned something, father wounds. We'll be delving deeper into that in a moment. Let me hear from Steve. What is your story with your father?
Thank you so much, Gladys. My father is still present, alive, let me use that term. And my experience is in two facets. When I was growing up to high school, that was a story. And then after high school is a different story altogether to date. So my story is that I grew up in a family, a polygamous family. My dad had 4 wives, one left, so there are 3 now. And he was a drunkard when I was growing up, and he was a politician during the Kanu regime. So when I was growing up, I was in this kind of, I would call it a militarian kind of setting, where everything is mechanical. I had a father, but I rarely interacted as a person with him. He would wake up in the morning, before we wake up, he's into politics, he comes back late, many times drunk, and so I didn't feel I had a relationship with him. And that affected my element of affirmation, in the sense that he would only come to a point of interaction when I am number 3 and not number 1. Many times I used to maintain position 1, 2, 3. Worst of it is when he realizes that a lady has beaten me. That would be a story of another day. And so our relationship was that mechanical. What do you need? Okay, tell your mother will tell me. So I used to access my dad through my mom, because whenever he would show up home during those times when he's drunk, we disappear. We have to go hiding because we fear you will be asked, ulikuwa namba ngapi? What did you get in maths? How many X's did you get? And sometimes he would work on you depending on the number of X's you get. By X I mean, the wrongs you get in mathematics or any other subject. So that was the relationship at that point.
So when you say it changed after primary school into high school, how much of it changed?
Much of it came when immediately after high school, I moved out of home. I went to teach in a certain high school, and I was renting away from home. And then I would hear my colleague teachers talk about their dads, how their dads are taking care of them, how their dads are present in their lives, they are hanging out with their dads. And I couldn't imagine ever hanging out with my dad. What are we going to talk about? I mean, is this soldier kind of that is going to ask me questions that will make me be down? So I thought for a moment and said, okay, is this going to change? Then I took the initiative and said, okay, let me become his friend. So when I became his friend, he realized that, okay, we can become friends. So we began conversations that have built over time to date. I took the initiative to make the change.
Okay, and we'll understand that journey much better later on, but just to that question, can you relate the impact of that mechanical relationship you had with your dad to who you are today?
Yes. One, in my relationships, when I was dating my wife, I emulated what I saw my dad do. Like, one of the things that have affected my relationship is I have never seen my dad hug my mom. I have never heard either of them talk of sweet words like, I love you, I appreciate you. So there was nothing like that. Mm-hmm. So I was conditioned to believe that, okay, you only affirm when somebody does something that stands out. When I brought that into the relationship, and my wife doesn't know her father. So I brought that into the relationship, and affirmation is her love language. And that is what I was struggling with the most. I tell you, we struggled. We nearly broke up relationship stages simply because I found it hard to say, I love you.
Okay.
I appreciate you. You're good.
Steve, I hear you on the challenges, and definitely I would like to hear more about how that affected that journey in relationships and other aspects of your life. Let's bring in Teresa. Teresa, what's your relationship with your dad, if at all?
For me, I didn't have one, unfortunately. My mom got me when she was 17. She was pretty young. But then she got married after a few years. So I had a stepdad. I didn't know that he was my stepdad until later on. So they got married and they had a relationship, but unfortunately the marriage didn't work. So after some time, we were just with mom. That's my sister and I. So basically, she's been our main parent for the longest time. But a few years back, 2017, she reconnected with some of her friends, and then she was in Shards. So she informed me about my dad. He was ill and it was terminal. So she told me about him. And as I was preparing to go see him, unfortunately, he passed away. So I was just able to go for the burial. And that was it. So I really didn't have any relationship at all.
Okay, so definitely being in the same house with your stepdad made it, had a man. Your house had a man in it. You say you didn't have a relationship, but with a man in the house, as Rispa is saying, did you feel the security that comes with perhaps having a male figure in the house?
Not really. It was just different. I didn't understand why until when my mom told me that my sister and I don't share the same dad, that it made sense. He was not a bad man or anything. He did not mistreat me, but I can't say that we had a relationship per se. Yeah, so he was there when he was present, but I can't say that there was really much of a relationship.
Okay, and when you look back with definitely not knowing your own dad, not having a relationship with your stepdad, do you see any effect on who you are today?
Yeah, definitely, but it took quite some time for me to figure out that it was actually daddy issues, because I think it's hard to miss something that you've never had. So like figuring that out and how not being able to have a dad has affected who I am. It took some time for me to just be self-aware and to be self-aware and just figure out what that looks like. So things like identity issues, things like self-esteem issues. So being able to figure out, apart from now my mom affirming me and reassuring me of all these things, there's just that part when you grow up as a girl and you want to be told by boys that you're beautiful, that you're pretty, so you keep on searching for such kind of attention, and it might seem small and all, but it's a big deal. So if I believe if there was someone to just reaffirm you apart from your mom, it would have probably gone a long way. So things like that.
This morning, we are talking about the role of a father in parenting his children. And the question of the day to you is, do you or did you have a close relationship with your father? If not, why? Let us know. And of course, if you'd had a good one, also let us know how that relationship was and the effects of the same on who you are today. Remember that hashtag is new normal, and you can also reach us using that number at the bottom of your screen. On to some of that feedback. Stanislaus Kenneth says, not because he died when I was young. Pole sana. Willie Onya says, no, because I never had an opportunity to meet him. He died while I was still in my mother's womb. Pole sana, Willie, I wish you could also tell us on the effects of not having one in your life and how that looks like, because that's what we're trying to establish here, so that we all understand that there is a place for a father. And if he's not there because he died, there's also the need of a father figure in each and every child's life. And speaking of which, Jeff, we've had Rispa mention something called father's wounds. You know, those issues that you relate back to the things you missed out on with your father, whether they were present or they were not present. In your case, seeing that he passed on a long time ago, what are those things that you see you missed out on and they had such a great impact on the man you are today?
Thank you, Gladys. There are so many things that I missed on. And I remember the other day I was joking to my wife when I was hanging my coat. I was struggling with hanging it, and I joked and said, these are some of the things that you really don't learn anywhere. You have to watch them from your dad and how your dad does them, and then you copy and you teach your son and you pass it on to the next generation that way. And that is just on a small scale on the things that I got to miss out on. The other things are just on how your father carries out themselves, the issues of values, what kind of values do they possess, because values are things that you actually also don't learn, you acquire, and you acquire by learning. When you work with your father and probably your father lies to someone, for example, you find this behavior that a lot of parents have, where a guest comes and the father tells the child to go and tell the guest that, you know what, I'm not in the house. Those are value-based issues, because what the kid picks is that is a person who lies. The other thing is giving. You learn how to give. I know my wife is such a good giver, and she picked it from her mom and her father. The same thing you can also learn by watching and emulating from your dad, by the way your dad gives. So that is another thing that I also got to miss out on. The next thing is just the confidence, because when you watch how your father probably talks to a group of people or talks to the people that he meets on the way, you learn how to express yourself and how to portray confidence. So those are just a few of the things that I missed out on amongst many other things.
Let's hear from Rispa. What are those fundamental things that you now clearly see you missed out on just because daddy was not in your life?
Okay. I missed out on assurance that as a girl, I'm a beautiful lady, and no other man can take that away from me. Hearing from my mother, from my dad, when he told me when he texted me the day after we met, and he said, I am proud of your confidence. I'm proud of the maturity that you presented when you came and joined and introduced yourself to my family, and that feel free now that you accepted in this family and you're part and parcel of this family. That was the best message I've ever received. Like, I got the confidence that I don't have to rely on other people who are not genuine in terms of their relationships, or basically just to feel that I'm accepted. Right now, when I get to see his call, or rather when I'm telling people that I actually have a dad, to me it seems like a story, like a movie, because I never knew I'll ever say that I have a father, or even that I have sisters, because being raised by as a single child, I really had to be very hard on myself, and especially because I had to now I was alone. I need to go on with life. I need to put things together. So I found myself working so hard to put things on the table and not experiencing that childhood, like the childhood itself. I usually say I matured earlier than I was because I had to now do things on my own. So.
Okay. And what impact did it have on relationships with the opposite sex?
Well, I would say I got involved with men that actually I did not deserve to be with them, because only for them to tell me that they love me, but it was not genuine love. It was actually just, I came to realize that I had a weakness, that being told I love you, or just the little things they would do would really carry me away, and forgetting that there's more in terms of relationships. And I found myself as a single mom to a 9-year-old who currently is 9 years old, and I must say I've gone through a lot, but right now my goal is to ensure that the generation change, because I actually realized my father also was not raised by the dad. So it was clear that this was now going to the next generation, and for me now I needed to break that chain for the sake of my children. So I took it upon myself to deal with myself and stand for myself, to know that if I don't deal with my wounds and deal with relationships differently, then I'm going to pass it to my children. Yeah.
That is a valid point, and clearly you are looking for the affirmation you really were seeking from the father you hoped you would have. Okay, now let's hear from the guys. Steve, you said you really had a mechanical father and wondered how people would have relationships with their own father. So the man you are today, apart from the relationship challenges you had, did it also seep into other parts of your life?
Yes. The bit of identity, it's something that I did not really get affirmed from my dad, because I would only feel confident when I have done something that stands out. But many times that I failed, I would sometimes lie so that I get that affirmation. But deep inside of me, I know very well that here, I'm just putting a plastic face. It also came into my leadership. I got an opportunity to lead the Christian Union in Maseno, and it affected my leadership style, because I got that militarian kind of leadership from my dad, where do your work, relationships don't really matter. So I would affirm progress, I would affirm achievements, and really fail to encourage people who are down here to rise up so that they can also feel affirmed that they can do it better. So that affected my leadership. A few people left the union simply because I was harsh on them when they did not do what was right. So they felt like I'm not worth, I'm not really, this is not my place at the end of the day. Yes.
Okay. And from Teresa, what are those things, you mentioned some of them, what are the things that you struggled with, still struggling with, just because you never had a father figure?
I think one of the biggest for me was being very pessimistic about the future. When I thought about things like marriage, there's a time that for me marriage was just not a concept that worked, because I just didn't grasp it. I didn't see it happening in our lives. So I wondered how that works. So I used to see other families, and I was like, oh, it must be nice. and everything. But I went through a phase where I was extremely pessimistic about relationships with men generally. And mostly when I say being pessimistic is if a man would disappoint me, either a friend or a relative, I wouldn't be shocked. I'd be like, well, that's to be expected. So every time I'd just put walls up. I'd ensure that when I get close to a man, it's not too close that they'll disappoint me to the point whereby I feel like I gave them too much of myself. So that was a really huge phase for me. And I just, so many things didn't make sense when it came to that. So I became extremely independent. I was already independent because my mom is really, really independent, and she brought us up in a very independent way for us to be strong and all that. But one thing that I also appreciate about her is she kept on saying that regardless of the fact that her marriage didn't work, it doesn't mean that ours won't work. But of course, as much as she echoed that out, and I also had some sermons and conversations in church and everything, for me it was just hard to grasp that. So it took some time for me to just figure out that that's actually a problem that comes from not having a dad or a complete family while growing up. So when a man would disappoint me, I'd be like, well, it happened. It's not a big deal. But yeah.
Okay, interesting perspectives from all. And we finally have Pastor Simon Bevy, the founder and director, Transform Nations, with us in studio. Now, Pastor S, just listening to these stories, I think we first need to understand the role of a father in a child's life to start with. Perhaps that would give us more insight as to why we're seeing the impact on the children now, grown-ups, who are speaking about the lack they had growing up.
Well, I'm sorry to be late, crazy morning, but glad to be here. I think every child is looking up to, of course, mom and dad. And they play different roles. Both of them are parents and they play different roles. But there are especially 5 things that dads play. Number one is to be present, to relate, the masculine-child relationship. So he is a father, he's relating to the daughter as the first man that this girl ever meets or is supposed to meet if he's there. If he's not there, then of course they don't get to relate. And that girl is looking to the model of masculinity. She's looking up to this man and saying, this is what men are meant to be. And so when the man is not there, then the girl begins to look for that because they missed it. For the boy, they are looking at the present dad to be a model of what it means to be a man. So number one is present. Number two is provider. Of course, we all expect our dads to be there to pay for school fees and provide alongside mom. But they need to be able to provide for us and show us that they care for us. Thirdly is protector. I remember a girl came to me once and said she hates men. And why she hated men is because when she was young, she got harassed, sexually harassed by the houseboy. And then she told dad, and dad said nothing, did nothing. And from that day, she felt, this is a bad world. Nobody cares about me. Nobody protects me, because I expected my dad to stand up for me, and he did not. So she grew up with a sense of insecurity, that I fear man, I fear the world, it's not a safe place. Dad did not stand up to protect me. The other one is priesthood, which is about values. I think we all look up to mom, yes, to begin us off on the journey of values, but we look up to dad to reinforce those values. Dad said this, so I want to do it. And I think the world over, in many communities, you find the elders sanction the values of the community and enforce them and model them, and the community looks up to them. And lastly, which is what I think a lot of them are talking about, is dad is meant to be a prophet. And that's very profound psychologically, because from around 9 years old all the way into teenage, children begin to long for a father figure because they've been very close to mom for quite a while. And they begin to look up to the other gender, a father figure, to affirm them. 3 years really. Number one, to accept them, to say, this is my child. And that acceptance has a way of giving a child identity. I belong. I'm accepted. And number two is to affirm, and I think they talks a lot about affirmation, to say, oh, I see this in you. I see you becoming this. I celebrate this in you. That affirmation is such a deep need for every child. And lastly is affection, the ability just to love on you and feel that you're close. It's interesting, just a few days ago, I was in a part of a country in Kericho, and I talked about these further challenges. And I remember standing there and saying, some of you have really longed, to meet a father figure and just be able to hug or talk to them. And I was surprised by how many people wanted that. And there's this man who was probably in his 60s who came to me and just wanted a hug. And he had longed for that, to feel that affection of a dad. Of course, he's older than me, but standing there as a father figure, he was longing for that. And that is a prophetic part where every child wants to hear from dad, this is who you are. You're great. You're going to make it. You're beautiful. You're pretty. You're going to make a good woman, and all of that. Calling them out and inviting them to become what they are becoming. Because mom has been affirming that, but we need another voice, another person to affirm that. And there are many examples that we could give around that.
Okay. Now, I understand we have a caller from Kitengela. Boniface from Kitengela. Karibu, what is your question or comment?
Oh, actually, I have a comment. First of all, I would like to thank all of you there for this actually discussion. My contribution is that actually when God created man or people, he had an idea of a family, and a family is made of two people. But nowadays we have the narrative of the girl child, we have the narrative of the boy child, we have ladies now talking about I'm a happy single mom, and so on and so forth. So basically the society is talking about separation, and my contribution is that I think we should start changing the narrative so that we encourage togetherness. So when we hear those people talking over the screen about the experience they've gone through, I feel very touched, and the society needs to do something. That's what I have to say. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Boniface from Kitengela, for your contribution. And Pastor S, this also goes to many others who are saying, okay, some of us were brought up by our single moms, but we turned out fine. I think it's good to actually just talk about the role of a present dad, because there are some who also have said the father was there, but really not there. He was mechanical. What does a present dad mean?
Well, that's a good question, because also personally I was brought up by a single mom, but there's a lot that I missed. I found out later there were some developmental gaps, and I'll probably get back to it. But a present dad means you're there, of course, physically present to a degree that you can, but number two, that you're involved, that you're there to speak with the children. You're there to get involved in their lives. I think I've given a story before of a young man in Form 2 in this city who was caught with weed or marijuana on his desk. And he was sent home for a while, and then he came back to school after suspension. And then I was invited to go and talk to him. And as I asked him, why did you do this? He said, I just wanted to get my dad's attention. I really didn't want to be naughty. But I thought, let me do something really stupid so that dad may correct me and get involved in my life, because he says nothing. He's passive. He's there, but he's not really involved. And I asked him, son, did you succeed? He said, I did not. I took the letter when I was suspended. I took it to my dad. I timed when my mom wasn't there. I gave it to my dad because I wanted him to get mad with me and talk to me. And he said, it didn't succeed. He read the letter, he looked at it, he looked at me, and he said, go and call your mother. And gave it to the mother and said, deal with your stupid boy. And the boy said, all I want is attention. And he said after that, he lives as if the father is dead. He said, he is home, but he's not really in my life. He's not my dad in that way. So involvement. And lastly, is approachability. I think some of us grew up with dads that even if he was there, you wouldn't dare come near if you know what's good for you, because anything could happen. Just their demeanor and how they sit and how they talk. It's like the bosses will say, my office is always open, but nobody walks in because you know what will happen when you walk in. So I would say present to the degree that they can. If they travel, then they can use technology to be involved, to be present in that way. But it means be involved in the milestones of a child, be involved with their homework, talk with them regularly, have dates with each one of them. Do what you can to really be there for them to feel dad understands me and is involved. And lastly, be approachable so that they can come to you and talk to you anytime they need.
All right, let's hear from the men on this panel. Steve, again, your father, mechanical father, but you still yearned to have a relationship with him. Did he come around, or did you give up on trying to sell this idea to him?
Thank you, Gladys. As I said before, after I went to teach in that high school around our home, I was staying away from home. So he began to become curious that, okay, why did you leave home, right? After hearing the stories of my colleague teachers, then I took the initiative to get him involved. Actually, I traveled home and explained to him what I'm doing, where I am at, how I pay my bills, and all these kind of things. So for me, I took the initiative to invite my dad into my life so that I don't feel out of place. I needed a story to share amongst my colleagues, and I went looking for that story.
Okay, and after you got, the reaction from him, have you continued to build on the same to date?
Yes. Today we are very great friends. We even talked yesterday, and I told him I would be here today talking about him. And he said, okay, I'll watch. So one thing that helped me cement this relationship is a program I did called Man Enough. After doing this program, I realized that I had those wounds and collected kind of things that were affecting the way I was living, relating with people, and even conflict resolution. Let me talk about conflict resolution a little bit. Being a polygamous family with 3 different homes, very far away, you have to plan to travel to either of their homes. So I would see them have conflict at home with my mom, but I never saw them resolve the conflict. So what would he do? After conflict today, he walks immediately to another home, stays for like a week, then comes back when things have cooled. So me, I thought like, that looks cool, yeah? When things are tough, just walk away so that they settle fast, then you come back and get life moving. So I adopted that. It has never worked for me. I have created a few enemies because of that. And out of Man Enough, I learned to approach every single problems and find solution for them.
Okay, interesting perspective. And I think the more we hear from our panelists, the more we're putting 2 and 2 together, even as to why we act certain ways, because the dots connect back to how you were brought up and the role of the father and the mother. Now, when we come back, we talk about the reason why we are seeing more absent fathers today. Is it because the dynamics of parenting have changed, or what exactly is going on? We'll be right back.
they speak about Ebola, you may see people there saying that it is a business from outside these countries.
We'll tell you how misinformation is keeping Ebola patients away from clinics and driving the numbers of infection.
How did Nigeria go polio-free for 3 years? We went digging for the facts.
And former Ghanaian President Jerry Rawlings recounts his experience as a victim of fake news.
And we also tell you how social media posts saved a sick giraffe in a Kenyan game park.
Welcome to Insignia Service Center, a state-of-the-art service center that offers diagnostics, repairs, wheel balancing and alignment, and a fully fledged high-quality paint booth. Insignia Group, consistent excellence.
Why did you start telling everybody about my own problems? Do you realize what you've done?
But it's not like that. I just did it because I was really worried.
We had a fight and I resigned.
I don't understand what you mean.
Every day it's getting harder and harder to contain my emotions. But I still have to stay and make sure that the land has been secured.
I forbid you from giving my daughter's things away. Do you understand me?
You and I are not in the position to decide what to do with her things, because the only ones who can make that decision are my children.
No!
Along came love.
Heaviness and a burning inside, it could be heartburn.
Indigestion and heartburn? Eno gets to work in 6 seconds and works on the 6 symptoms of heartburn so you can keep living life non-stop. Eno, fight heartburn and indigestion fast.
Kenya in recession. How bad is it?
1.7 million jobs lost in 1 quarter is unprecedented in Kenya's history.
How do we assess the interventions taken?
I'm not too sure that 100 billion in total over 6 months could create as much of a boost as these tax cuts certainly created.
What is the economic outlook?
I think one of the things Kenya needs to do is get a few more people off subsistence agriculture into some kind of manufacturing.
In the next edition of Business Redefined, we speak to the Chief Executive Officer of the Institute of Economic Affairs.
Try Panadol Advance for relief from headaches, body aches, and fever. With Panadol's Optizorb formula, the tablet gently breaks down in the stomach, quickly absorbs, and starts providing pain relief in 15 minutes. For fast and effective pain relief that you can trust, try Panadol Advance.
Thank you for staying with Your World. My name is Gladys Gachanja. Today we are focusing on the role of a father in parenting his children. And to help us along with this conversation in studio, Pastor Simon Bevy, founder, director, Transform Nations. We have Jeff Dindi, who is a blogger and founder of Present Fatherhood, Rispa Wanjiro, Triza Lando, and Steve Aomo also joining us to give us their experiences in as far as their fathers are concerned. And Jeff, after Steve talked about the way he never saw his parents relate literally. His father telling his mother he loves her and, just being a couple around the children. There are many who are saying, ulisikia wapi? Have you ever had a father who ever loves on his wife like that in front of his children? Now, you did not have a father, so you did not see that yet. We see on your social circles and social media that you're very intentional about loving on your wife. Why?
That is very true. I'm very intentional in loving my wife, and that is thanks to my aunt who took me in. I think there is a thing that you learn when you are around women, okay? And all my life I've grown up around women, my sister, my aunt, my other cousins, and I sort of, in a cunning way, I don't know whether it's a cunning way, grew up and understood women in that way. And I grew to understand what they actually need. And that translated in my school life and my high school. I found myself very comfortable around women. And as I advanced in life, that just grew more and more and more. And there is a feeling that I always got when I treated women right. What I saw when I treated them made me feel very nice, and the more I did it, the more I wanted to do it more, and that is what is now being seen on social media, and that is what also has inspired me to begin my blogging.
You picked that up with the aunties that were around you. Why are you intentionally doing it with your children watching? What are you trying to pass on?
I love my children, and the way I missed on being loved that way, and I say that I wanted to be an intentional father right from the time I was 12 years old. The little bit that I watched from my dad wasn't such a talking person. We didn't interact much, but I was very close to my mom, and I saw what it did to me, the kind of person that I became. My mom would come to my sporting events. I was very athletic, and I could feel how it would make me feel when I saw her on the touchline and supporting me and cheering me on. And that is what I wanted to give my children. And every day I would walk and talk to myself and just say, I'm looking forward to that day when I'm going to become a father. And that's why when I became one, unfortunately, when I was still in campus, I made an actual decision. And the good thing is that I found a woman who I could actually sit down with and talk to. And we had done that prior, even before we had the child. We were having discussions, and I was telling her the kind of father that I want to be. And I was happy that that is what she was also looking for. And fast forward, when I actually became one, I loved it. And right on, I dived into it, even when circumstances around me wasn't very conducive. I jumped right into it, and I've seen the fruits. I've seen the fruits, and the more I see the fruits, the more it encourages me to be more intentional.
Steve, you're the one who said you never saw it between your parents. Why was it important for you to have seen this?
Thank you, Gladys. I needed modeling. I needed my dad to model to me that, okay, this is what happens in various circumstances. Like I have said, I grew up knowing that telling somebody I love you is a very private issue that can only happen in bed. Yet in marriage, it's a way of life. Not in bed only, but every other bit of it. Ladies need it. And for my case, it's a little different because my wife never got to see her dad. So in that sense, I step in the shoe of a dad in her life, and I am a husband at the same time, and I'm a friend. So we have had a little bit of conflict on that because I'm not able to, as often as needed, pronounce the word, I love you, I appreciate you, you're beautiful. We have had a little bit of conflict over that. But it's work in progress for me. It's learning every time. And at least I'm better than I have been before. I called my dad and I told him, I was jokingly telling him that, Dad, you know what? You didn't tell me that I love you is not an evil word. He laughed and said that, you know what? Tell her I love you. Sorry, I did not teach you that, but continue telling her I love you. Yes.
All right. Now we have a caller online. Ichwara from Nairobi. What's your question or comment?
Hello.
Karibu, Ichwara. Go ahead.
Yeah, my name is Ichwara. You put it rightly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, your topic today is very touchy. It's very touching.
Mm-hmm.
And especially you played that clip or a video of a situation whereby a son has killed the dad. I'm married, and we are 11 brothers in our family. My father brought up in a very special manner, in a special way, because when parenting, you need to be tough, not mistreating the children, or when a father is tough, like I'm tough in my family. It's not that I don't love my children. I love my children. And that is why when it comes to especially boys, you need to be very firm as a father. Now, let me tell you, Gladys, what has brought about problems these days. The issue of drugs. Children live in two forms. When he is high on drugs, that is one form. When he is sober, that is another form. So now, the issue of parenting has become very, very difficult. Even the banning of schools has come about because of drugs. The government needs to come out and put in place regulations and rules and tough laws on how to deal with children or people in Kenya who transact in drugs. So parenting, Gladys, has become so hard on us parents because of drugs. That needs to be taken very, very, very seriously, because it's now killing our children. So the child, like that one was killed his father, did not even know what he was doing. That a normal child will not come and hit you and kill you just like that.
Thank you, Chwara, from Nairobi. Now, that touches on the values that we heard a bit earlier on, and I will hold off on that, even as we talk about the love language in front of the children and teaching them how to go about it in their own lives. Let me hear from the ladies. Rispa, you said you wished you saw a relationship between your mom and dad. Definitely, this was not, you are not given that chance. When you found out that she kept this from you, how did you feel?
Well, I never thought that somebody would deny a child the opportunity to get to know the other side, or rather the present parent. To me, I felt like my mom, when I kept on asking her, I remember when I was a child, I used to have those discussions whereby I'm trying to probe and ask, where's my father? And should either ignore the conversation or give me different kind of stories. And I think the much I can remember actually as a consistent answer, it was that he went, he placed somewhere, a place of work, he never came back. And with that, she created an image as if she was dead. Rather, my dad was no longer in existence. So I had lost hope. I actually lost hope that I will never get to know my roots, because she never told me about what tribe he was, what did he used to do. So I never had a sense of identity, or rather, what are my roots? Because sometimes people say I look like from a certain region, and I'm like, okay, well, I wish I knew my father, so even the tribe for me to associate myself. Mm-hmm. So when I came to actually learn, that was after I got to know my dad, that in fact my dad did not know about my existence. And this is from the fact that my aunties and my uncles also never knew about my dad, and even my mom's friends, because I remember now later on, friend to my mom was very close, she told me, the only thing I knew about your dad is that he was a teacher. I'm surprised that you actually come from the same tribe, because my father lives less than 10 kilometers from where my mom used to live. So, but there was no coincidence of which even any sign or discussions that my father just lives nearby. So the friend to my mom told me this, and I realized, okay, this is something I'll never get to know, because my mom is not in existence. I will not know why she never disclosed, because even my auntie said that she remembers there's a time, I think when I was in high school, because we got into a very, I was not in good terms with my mom. I remember that time, because I really now, I was very serious. I wanted to know my dad. And she said, the question she asked me, what is it that you've lacked? I've taken you to good school, I've provided for you, then what do you want?
Okay.
So I left and actually ran away from home and stayed with my previous house help for like 2 days because I was bitter. But yeah, when I came to know that actually my dad did not know about me, I realized probably my mom had her own reasons as to why she did not disclose that, because she had sworn to her own friends that she would never tell me about my dad. So, but it's something that I'll never get to know. But what I appreciate is that fact that the minute I go to see my dad, we look alike, and it was clear that I have somewhere I can call home.
Now, for you, Teresa, you never met your biological father. Do you yearn to know who he is? Have you ever looked for him?
Good question. I think my mom did such a good job of being the parent to my sister and I. I don't know. Every time I wondered, of course, I wondered about him, who he was, what he looked like from time to time. But I can't say that it was a consistent thing. I didn't even, most of the time when I would think of asking my mom, you see the way Rispa just shared, how her mom would say, I've taken you to good schools, I've provided for you. So for me, it was more of, I didn't want my mom to feel like, when I ask her about my dad, that there's something she's not doing right. So I mostly refrained from asking about him. So I thought when she's ready to tell me about him, she definitely will. And she did. And not negating the fact that I had the right to know about him, but I feel like, I felt like rather, whatever happened between them, there must be a reason why she hasn't told me about him. So I really didn't ask much about him. So yeah, most of the time when I'd wonder, and maybe when my friends would ask or something like that, I'd be like, my mom knows best. And the fact that maybe she hasn't told me about him, there's a reason. And when she's ready to talk about it, she'll tell me about him. So I really never wondered much. So by the time that I got to hear about him and everything, I was already an adult. So not that it's not important to know, and sadly he had to pass away. Of course, it would have been awesome to get to know him and everything. But I was like, things happen for a reason. So it was a confusing period and everything. But I was grateful that she finally told me about him, regardless. Yeah.
Okay, now there are various issues that have come up. I'll start off with the love language. The men have said they wished they saw this from their fathers, but they're glad they were able to pick a few things in the mother figures in their lives to know how well to treat the children, but they still were struggling with the same. There are other men who are saying, why do you have to see this for you to actually love on your wife or have an impact on your relationship? Talk about the importance of this.
I think it's very important to see something modeled because the first few years of our lives, after around 13, 14, we really get lots of the socialization we will live with. Almost 60% of who we become is what we saw in those formative years. And when you don't see that happen right in front of you, then you either find it a struggle to do it, or you go to the other side where you find it, you find you want to do it more and more. Thankfully, mothers are there and they get to teach us how to relate to ladies. But either we overdo it. I found for us who grew up without a father figure modeling that, we either end up overdoing it towards the women and getting more comfortable with women and not really relating with the men, which becomes an issue, or we go the other way. You know, we just say, you know, let's not relate. We either repeat what we saw or didn't see, or we overdo it as a way of compensating. So it's very crucial. I mean, we have talked with my wife and said, we're going to intentionally hug before the children. And kiss before the children, peck or kiss on the lips. And because my kids need to see what is good love right in front of us, so that they don't think this is bad behavior. They need to know this is good behavior between the right people, and it's okay to express it. If they don't see that, they're going to either to struggle to express it or over-express it, you know, to so many other people.
Okay.
Yeah, so modeling is powerful for the formative years.
Okay, and there is a caller, Chwara, who is very categorical that parenting today is being made difficult because of the dynamics of growing up. I mean, there's drugs, there's alcohol abuse and all that. But that pinpoints on the value system. Talk about how the dots connect, what we're seeing today and the foundation that was laid.
Yeah, I think our parents were a lot more involved, especially in teaching us values. I mean, I remember coming out of school those days, and you're walking around, because we would walk, you know, we were little kids, but you'd walk alone. It was safe going to school. And if another father or mother sees you misbehaving, they would stop you and say, whose are you? Run to school right now. Yeah. So the values were reinforced by the society. Of course, nowadays is everyone on themselves. That you could find a child doing really crazy things around your estate, even doing drugs, and you don't care. You don't want to get involved because you may get sued by even the father or the mother. So I think this breakdown of community also leads to a gap in terms of reinforcement of values. The values were strong. Kids had very little opportunities to get away with you know, trouble because everyone was involved in that. But secondly, also, I think we have modeled the wrong things as well. There are a lot of parents who do some things which are the wrong values right in front of the kids. And they see dad do this. They see dad beat up mom. They see this and that happening. Those days, a sanction of community could not allow you to do some things. Everyone would come on, you know, to say, no, this is wrong. But these days, what we are showing, of course, is not right. And lastly, it seems to look to be the case, and social scientists show that in many cases, in many studies, then when dads are not there to reinforce the values, the likelihood of children departing from those values is higher. I think we've heard of these statistics that when fathers are not involved, children are more likely to get early pregnancy, to drop out of school, to get into prison. I mean, I did a study in our Kenyan prison a few years ago, and I published the study that up to 78% of everyone who was in Kenyan prisons then did not have a father growing up. And it's just the reinforcement. It's not like moms are not doing a great job, but children want to hear this from another person. And when fathers are not there to reinforce it, then the values, you know, kids easily depart from those values.
All right. And on to now the identity. Rispa has said she really yearned for a father. This was not disclosed to her, and she only found out about her father literally last year. Yeah. Okay. For Teresa, she says she really didn't feel the need. She wanted to ask, but she could see how mom used to react, so she just let it go. Not that she doesn't want him, but really she was like, mom did a good job. There's a reason for it. Yeah. What is the place of ensuring that there is, if the dad can't be there for whatever reason, at least there's a father figure in your child's life?
Yeah, that's very crucial because I think, as they have said, there's always a father hunger. And when people don't ask, it's because they fear or they don't want to make it another burden to already an overburdened mother. And so they keep it. But the father hunger is a real psychological reality. I had it. I cried many times after my father had died. I cried many times and said, why is it I'm the only boy without a dad among my friends? And I would withdraw somewhere and really cry because I longed for that. I think what I would say to especially single moms, because my mom was one for the longest, is that number one, have the conversation about the dad with the kids. Let them know at the right age. Usually around 9, 10, 11 is when they begin to have that hunger, because it's when they begin to pull away a little bit from mom to know who they are, and that's when they begin to have the identity question. And so have the conversation. Even if he's not there or you don't know where he is, just tell the child that. And tell them, when you grow up, we'll talk more. But have the conversation. Don't let them struggle on their own to try and figure out what happened or to try and look for him. Because some of them, I've had some come and say, every time I see this man on the streets, I wonder, could he be my dad? And that's not nice. But lastly, to what you asked, of course, it's good to have a father figure. For me, I was very fortunate that I had a teacher in high school who became the father figure. He was my music teacher. I don't think he even knew what he was doing, but he just came and affirmed me, celebrated me, gave me a hug one day in class, which led me to cry for 2 hours. It was just too good to believe that it was happening. So it's good to have a father figure, someone that these kids can talk to when they want to hang out with a male figure, when they want to ask questions. And I think I've seen it in many ladies who come and say, can you be a father figure to me? There are times I want to ask questions, and I just can't ask my mom. I've asked them. I want someone else to ask. And there's that yearning. I mean, every year I get more than 100 requests of kids saying, can you be a father figure to me? So I would challenge all the good men out there, let's be available to be community fathers. So that we can be father figures. It's crucially important. It fills in the gap that the kids didn't have growing up.
All right, well said. We're talking about the role and the impact of a father in parenting. And when we come back from this break, we'll talk about the reasons for absent dads today. But before we get to that, I hear you talking to us, even as we understand if you had a relationship or a good one with your father growing up, and if you didn't have one, let us know why. We have Ronnie Tush, who says most of the fathers are always arrogant and doesn't seem to care. Boys are most victimized. Kenato Tim says, yes, my dad parenting way was too militarian, drunk, chases siblings after drinking spree. Though as we grew up, he changed and currently we are okay. We hang out, make jokes. If you meet us, you may think we are brothers. That is a good ending. Willie Onya says, I never had an opportunity to meet him. He died while I was still in my mom's womb. Prince Moses says, I had a relationship with my dad. He was the closest friend and dad to me, always there for me no matter what, and did everything possible to make sure I'm okay. You can even hear the pride through Moses's tweet. Mike Adakwa says, I had a relationship with my dad. He was my closest friend, and we did everything possible. I'm okay today. Mike also reaffirms the same. Fahi Kamal says, he always used to say I'm not his daughter because I'm the only one who is not dark at home. That is so unfortunate, Fahi. Jinabi Jinai says, I lost my dad at the age of 8. I truly miss his presence and love. We hear you, Jinai. Thank you for sharing. Patrick Moshui, who says, as for me, I have never even dreamt of wanting to know him. My mother became my father the moment my supposed dad decided to abandon me. He has never even attempted to know if I existed, so a mother can give you the guidance a father can if she gets full support from the family. Patrick, we hear you, but then again, it is being emphasized that there is always the role of a father figure in a child's life. So it's always good to actually tap into the same. We take a short break. We'll be back.
Maji mdosi wangu ametupa simu yangu ndani ya maji.
Mdosi wako kwa sawa. Venye Nkirota ameniambia ajui na akimpigia simu ashiki. Hi, guy, what
For the women who deserve more, Moped is now in Kenya and more than 40 countries. With its nylon-free surface, new Moped has unique softness and up to 100% protection. Your skin will love it.
Breaking news from Molfix. Let's see what they're developing right now.
Molfix pants with anatomic fit technology. New Molfix pants, an invention from babies for babies.
You should also try Molfix.
Heaviness and a burning inside. It could be heartburn.
Indigestion and heartburn? Eno gets to work in 6 seconds and works on the 6 symptoms of heartburn so you can keep living life non-stop. Eno, fight heartburn and indigestion fast.
They speak about Ebola. You may see people there saying that it is a business from outside these countries.
We'll tell you how misinformation is keeping Ebola patients away from clinics and driving the numbers of infection.
How did Nigeria go polio-free for 3 years? We went digging for the facts.
And former Ghanaian President Jerry Rawlings recounts his experience as a victim of fake news.
And we also tell you how social media posts saved a sick giraffe in a Kenyan game park.
Welcome to Insignia Service Center, a state-of-the-art service center that offers diagnostics, repairs, wheel balancing and alignment, and a fully fledged high-quality paint booth. Insignia Group, consistent excellence.
By Awiko and Mr. Seed, dial star 812 star 802 hash. Skiza Na Nation.
Try Panadol Advance for relief from headaches, body aches, and fever. With Panadol's Optizorb formula, the tablet gently breaks down in the stomach, quickly absorbs, and starts providing pain relief in 15 minutes. For fast and effective pain relief that you can trust, try Panadol Advance.
Thank you for staying with Your World. My name is Gladys Gachanja, having a very interesting conversation about the role of fathers in their children's lives. Still having my panel and Pastor Simon, who is walking us through this conversation. And I understand we have a caller online, Jennifer from Kahawa West. What's your question or comment?
I'm just grateful to watch the show. I have had our brother Simon Bevy as my mentor, them days of Kenya House of Prayer, and he's really a father. And I'm glad to see that many people, they understand the role of a father, but I really know that fathers are very, very important. I'm a medic. I know that most of the people that we have in the prisons are people who are never having a father as a mentor. So a dad is very important. I lost my dad when I was very young, and as Simon Bevy is saying, I wondered why no other man who was called by the name of my dad could not have died, and my dad is the one who had to die. And it was very, very difficult for me to pick up. I just picked up as a grown-up, but I'm very glad to see that we have people in this country who can really talk about the role of fathers. Fathers are very, very important. And the problems we are seeing even in this country is that we don't really have people who can say that they know what is to be a father. Fathers are very, very important to us.
Thank you, Jennifer, for your comment. Have a wonderful day. And speaking of which, we are asking, why is it that we are seeing more absent dads today? Again, back to you, Jeff. You are very intentional about being in your children's lives. So what is this that you're doing differently so that you are a present father?
Thank you, Gladys. As I had mentioned earlier, that I knew that I wanted to be a father right from the beginning. And this came out to play when eventually I became one. And I chose to be intentional so that my kids can get to enjoy the role that a father can play in their lives. And I just want them to see and to be able to enjoy the fruits of having a present father. Because when young people have been talked a lot that they run away once a girl has gotten pregnant and they take off and they are never seen again. But for me, I want to break that cycle of having absent fathers. And the only way I can do that is by being present, and being present in the things that I do at home. For example, one of the ways that I know is preventing fathers from being present is because there are so many ways because fathers do not know how to be present. And they only think that being present is provision. And yet, as Simon Bevy mentioned, there are so many other P's, provider. Provision is just one of them. Then there is protector, there is being a priest. And I really have a passion around being a priest, because when you prophesy in your child's life, you are the one who is able to see them grow, and you are able to identify character, and you are also able to see this person has this kind of potential. And once you are able to prophesy in their life, most likely it comes to be true, because the tongue has power. That also said, I also try to venture into the traditional stuff that were left for the women, that is the domestic chores, which I also really come out to try and be intentional in doing, because that is the only way that we can be able to spend time with your spouse and get to know them and get to know what they want and how they can be helped, so that both of you can be present in the child's life. So that is what I'm trying to do, and I must say that I haven't figured it out fully. And that's why I keep on identifying people in the society who, like Simon and my pastor, who has pastored me for quite some time, so that I can be better and better each and every day. I'm not yet there, but I'm getting there.
Well said. We have a caller online. Ken from Kiserian.
Yeah.
What is your question or comment?
Thank you so much for this opportunity. It's a great program. It's a great program for us, for parents. My concern is that these days most of the parents are tending to be selfish, in the sense that they are denying their kids that personal touch or parenthood touch towards them. What I'm trying to get to is there are these things we call work pressures that tend to steal away that parent from getting in touch with the kid. And actually, maybe I'm a salesman. I go round and round. Eventually, a whole week, a whole month, I've seen my kids twice, thrice. But these are things that us parents, we need to work hard towards against that, so that maybe you can say, maybe I'm going to work as a salesman, maybe up to the age of 35 or 40 years. for the rest of the years, you try and avail more time to your kids. Because in as much as you do that sales work, it will come to an end one day. Another aspect that I find that is people are being selfish and denying kids. We have these relationship problems. I ask myself, why should we drag our kids into them? And you have this, like, the people have contributed, denying, like, watoto wangu wataona mama watani. You know, you are denying the kids parenthood because we are selfish, and we need to work against that.
Thank you, Ken.
Yeah, I think. Last thing, maybe allow me to point to more issues. The social, maybe there's this, maybe people are tending to watch more football during the weekends. They're denying these kids. There's a social, we run around. Last thing is there's this promotion around of men can do what our women can do, women can do. You know, it's it should not be used to deny the kids to a certain extent parenthood. So I cannot be a mother to the kids. Neither can I be a woman. I cannot be a father to the. We have to appreciate that there's a way we love. A father loves the kid, or the way a mother loves the kid. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ken from Kiserian, for that contribution. And actually, you put into perspective why, or some of the reasons why we have absent fathers today. So, Simon, the impact of an absent dad. There are those who are saying they are too busy trying to earn a living to be there for their children. But then again, we've heard here the ripple effect of the same. So how best can parents cultivate, and dads in this case, to be present fathers despite the distractions?
Yeah. I think number one, I would say a lot of dads are not present because they're very busy working for the family. I think work has become huge. The global village, so there are many fathers who are in Dubai, in all the place. So I would say number one, create time. Realize this is a priority. It should be your number one commitment, and then work and other things. So create the time, make the time, because there are some fathers who are around town, but they never really make time for the children. So number one is a commitment to make time. Number two is, and I think one of them alluded to it, the dads want to get involved, but they're just unequipped. They don't know what to do. I mean, their dads will say, how do you spend 1 hour with your child? What do you even talk about? What do you do? And so in our intentional dad program, one of the things we do is to have practical sessions of hanging out, giving you ideas of how you can hang out with your child and how you can create time. There's a friend who was telling me the longest drive they had a few years ago was with the dad from here to Nakuru, because there wasn't much to talk about. They just, when they got in, he just said, are you comfortable? The next place was Delamere. Do you want some yogurt?
Yeah.
And then after that is when they arrived. It was awkward for them because he was well-intentioned, but he didn't know what to do. So I think dads getting to places, and now there are many programs, not just intentional dad, and getting to understand how do you connect, especially if you didn't see this modeled. I think the other thing is cultivating marriage, because when marriage breaks, of course, a lot happens to fatherhood. Many times fathers don't get involved anymore. So I think we need to realize marriage is important, and if it breaks for whatever reason, fathers shouldn't be, kept away. I think there should be a way that they can get involved to the degree that they can in the situation that is there. And I think lastly, what I would say is that there's a growing number of irresponsible fathers who really don't care. They gave seed, they had a few relationships, maybe they were informed on Twitter they were fathers, and they didn't commit anymore. I think we need to realize once you give seed, it's only manly for you to support that seed and be involved in that child's life, and for us to be a lot more committed and responsible as men. In our choices of relationships, and when a child results, for us to know that we have a privilege, we have a responsibility, and we need to have a commitment to take care of that child. So create the time, get the skills that you need and the commitment as well.
Okay, now even as we bring this conversation to a close, I'll start off with you, Rispa. You have children now. Are you being intentional on exposing them to a father figure?
Okay, I'd say that I had to start with myself first. And so what I did the Mother Woman Enough, that is EZA, by the program run by Simon, which opened me up to various aspects as a woman. And thereafter, I also did Mother of Sons, because I realized I have to play a role as a father and also a mother. And as time goes by, I've also been enrolling my son to different programs just to help him build up on his character and also values, because at some point I realized there's a bit of resistance, there's a bit of, I was struggling to actually understand him, because I can't relate to a man, like I can't relate being a male, because I've not gone through, you know, a male figure in my life. So how do I become a father to, like, it was quite a challenge for me. So I would want to thank the husband to my auntie, because I would say he has really helped me when it comes to this, and he calls him out whenever I'm struggling to deal with a certain issue with my son. I just take him to my uncle. He stays there for a weekend or even during holidays, and this has really helped him actually improve on his character. And also what I've done, also I've become intentional in terms of letting him be the one to read the Bible. Like I started, actually beginning of this year, I made it a purpose for him to read the Bible every day and be the one to pray for the rest of us, so that I can empower him to know that he can actually be a man.
He is one.
Yeah.
In the making. He is one in the making. Thank you, Rispa. And talking about intentionality, Steve, what are you being intentional about now that you know your past, some of the gaps that were, and now that you're in marriage?
Thank you, Gladys. I'm intentional about getting equipped so that I can become a better father and a better husband. One of the quotes that inspired me to do this after doing Man Enough was that a broken father is likely to pass the broken baton to the son. And so if this father does not deal with his brokenness, he's going to pass the baton to the son, and this son, having not dealt with his brokenness, is also going to pass it to his networks and his children, if at all he gets to marry. So I reflected on this and said that I have to be intentional about equipping myself to become a better father. Also, I'm intentional about getting into my dad's world. In a week, we talk like 3 times with my dad. Either I call or he calls, and we talk for long. Like yesterday, we were just talking about politics, his political journey, how he failed, the mistakes he made in the process, and I'm learning out of it. There are certain secrets that he tells me, that he assures me that this one, I've not even told your brothers, but keep it to yourself first. So I've become his friend. So I'm intentional to equip myself so that I become better, but also get into the world of my family members. One of the things that I did as far as intentionality is concerned is that I noted that in our history as a family, we have even never had or appreciated celebrations. We have never celebrated birthdays. We are 11 of us in the family and around 24 of us in the entire homestead, the children of my father who I know. So in December 9, 2019, we just rallied and we organized a birthday celebration for my dad. It was not his birthday, but we just wanted to create a culture of celebration. And I was intentional about it because we had a number of nephews and nieces who were present during December. And I said that I am doing this so that they can get a point of reference that we also get to celebrate this. And lastly, I did a wedding last year, and I was intentional about doing a wedding even when I had the opportunity to just do a very small thing and just call it a day. I was doing that because I realized in my family, all of us, that was the first wedding in the family. We are used to this culture of, okay, somebody disappears for like 5 months and you call them, oh, I'm in my house, I got married. So I wanted to break this circle, especially for my nephews and nieces, as a way of mentorship, and tell them that, you know what, you don't need to just go. Come, present your idea to the right people at home. Let's celebrate you. Let's plan for you. Let's assist you. Let's equip you. And let's build functional families going forward.
We celebrate you, Steve, for being intentional. Now, over to Teresa. What are you being intentional about now that you're aware about the impact of your past on the future?
I think one thing that I'm being intentional about is the shortcomings that I have, and I'm also being very intentional on how I relate with men around me, because of my struggle of being very pessimistic. Most of the time, when you have friendships around you, when I have friendships around me, rather with men, it's like you're setting them up to fail. Because if you think they're going to fail either way, then why should they try? So now I thank God that He's taken me through that whole process, and also my friends and some mentors around me. So I can say that I'm no longer that pessimistic girl. So I'm more optimistic, and I'm seeing how these relationships and friendships with men are very crucial, and they really help even build the kind of person that I become. So I think that's one major things that I'm doing. Yeah.
Thank you, Teresa, and we wish you well. Now, over to Jeff. You have been intentional about being a present father. Your advice and encouragement to other fathers?
My encouragement would be that follow your instincts as a father. Invest in your mental health, because if you are not mentally fit, then you'll not be able to be a father to anyone. The next thing, I think I will just want to encourage them that don't make decisions that are based on now. Make decisions that are long term. You might decide to make a decision that based on your situation at the moment. Maybe it is financial, or it is relatives who do not want you to become a father, and therefore you choose not to be one. But on the long term, it might not pay off. So make decisions based on long term and not short term.
Jeff, and before we hear the parting shot from Pastor Simon, if you can have some of the feedback, even as you let us know if you had a close relationship with your father or not. We have Mogul Mundia, who says, my dad is too tough and militant. I grew up disliking him. Me and my brothers were the victims. This made us to love our mom more. This is a trait I want to change in my kids' life. And we hear you, Mundia. Thank you for sharing. Opio Nyimbo says, how you treat Mama Watoto, respect, is more important than 1,500 hugs. Pay attention to the verbal and non-verbal communication. Opio, very well said. Godfrey Kibanya says, you are right, Jeff. We ought to speak life into our children. Thank you for sharing with us this morning. And of course, Pastor Simon, we've heard many saying that they really have father wounds and they don't even know where to start with their fathers. Is there a place for reconciliation even as we close?
There is. I think as we close, I would say just a few things. Number one, fathers, let's do our work. Let's not wound the next generation. Let's realize that the quality of fatherhood today is a certain prediction of manhood tomorrow. Let's do our part. But secondly, let's deal with our daddy issues. They affect us where possible. Forgive. Come to a place of closure. with your dad. If he's nowhere to be seen, maybe he's dead or maybe you don't know where he is, then have a personal closure. If you need counseling, please find counseling so that you deal with that. But if he's at a place where you can reach out to him, reconciliation is great. I mean, some of the stories I've heard here and I've seen, when you get back to that place of reconciliation, you forgive your dad, you understand where he might have been coming from, you let it go and you reach out and rebuild the relationship. It's never too late. There's a friend of mine who reconciled with the dad 2 weeks before he died, and he was very happy he did that because there was a good closure even as he left. Lastly, I want to say let's appreciate dads. Someone has said dads are the most unappreciated. You know, if you have a good dad, call him and tell him, thank you for being involved in my life. Yes, we appreciate moms, but let's also appreciate dads and celebrate them and support them and realize some of them are really struggling because they never really had that relationship with their dads. Let's make sure Kenya is a fathered nation.
Very well said, Pastor Simon Bevy, Founder Director, Transform Nations. And thank you to Jeff Dindi, Rispa Wanjiro, Triza Orlando, and of course Steve Aomo for sharing your experiences and being so candid on this subject. And we wish you well even as you intentionally move forward with all this wisdom. Now, tomorrow, we focus on the high rate of unemployment among the youth. Now, the pandemic has made an already bad situation worse, but what can we draw from it in terms of opportunities, and how can we better support the youth to stand on their own 2 feet? We figure this out tomorrow from 7 a.m. See you then.